Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the inevitable talk of further climb downs to come from Labour on unpopular cuts to welfare spending, which the party seem to understand has cost them a lot of credibility with voters, leading to the loss of a safe Westminster seat and more council seats than really should have been the case earlier this month. So what might the consequences be economically and politically of Labour deciding to not only reset EU relations, but while they're at it, reset relations with voters who reacted very negatively to what were very obviously going to be unpopular moves? But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So the change to the winter fuel allowance policy announced by Keir Starmer was absolutely filling up the front pages today. News everywhere. And you think, in reality, we don't actually really know what the new policy is, do we? The allowance is still going to be means tested. The threshold is going to be raised, meaning more pensioners will get it, but we don't know when that will be. If they announce the changes in the autumn budget statement, it'll be too late for next winter. It'll have to be the winter after. That only risks affected voters being even more pissed off. Also, are Labour going to adjust the threshold a little bit and hope that does the trick? Or are they going to do their homework this time and make sure they know where the line needs to be in order to prevent this becoming an ongoing political issue? Given that Labour have very obviously not been running the numbers on clearly controversial policies so far, or have been woeful at interpretation if they have, can we really be sure they're going to get it right this time? Because there's good reason to believe that getting something wrong early in Parliament, particularly when you're a new government, then correcting course, you can absolutely recover all your lost ground by the election. Voters actually tend to be quite reasonable in many ways. It's really disappointing because they gave the Tories far too many chances, but they will keep giving you chances. It's why I said Rishi Sunak, when he took over, all he had to do was stop being so Tory for a year and a half. And voters actually would have given it, things are improving, we'll give him another chance. They do it all the time. Voters tend to be very, very reasonable and are happy to say things like, well, yes, they messed up early on, but they came good in the end. But that relies on getting it right second time. Voters may be less forgiving if Labour tried to correct the problem only to mess it up again. I don't think they're going to get away with just adjusting it a little bit each year until voters seem content. Make a clean break, err on the side of caution, like real politicians would. It's not even like we're talking much money here. But that is not the only unpopular policy. There is also talk of revisiting the disability cuts as well. Now, this is a different problem in a way. Pensioners are a huge voting bloc. They don't like something they think they're entitled to being removed, even if they're better off overall. That is a huge problem all around the country. Disability cuts are much more broadly acceptable and sometimes even popular with key voting groups. However, that's taking a uniform approach to the problem. In a lot of Labour areas, which are now vulnerable to Reform UK, there are a higher proportion of voters impacted by this policy. So the suggestion is that Labour are looking at this as well. Now, there's a sense in which it would be easier for Labour to just reverse this policy and one in which it's way harder. The easier sense is it's not actually all that firm. It was announced in a budget, but they haven't announced the details. The details are still to come out. There's still a consultation. After the consultation, they could easily say, yeah, do you know what? We're not going to go ahead with this. The arguments were very much based on budgets as well. They can say, well, the economy's improving. Yeah. Reeves found herself with the cost of borrowing increasing, which wiped out her headroom. That was what really heralded the cuts. But it looks like her new headroom is not coming back, by the way. It's actually at risk later this year as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to do more cuts. They haven't gone well so far. Can't keep snipping things from the budget every 6 months, especially when it's costing you elections. Being clear, Labour were always likely to lose something at the local elections this year. Governments almost always do, the vast majority of the time. Even new governments, even when you've just swept to power, the next local elections, you're likely to get hammered, right? But it shouldn't have been this bad, especially as it's not like Labour had a stunning result the last time these seats were contested. So there are off-the-record reports that Labour are looking at the whole thing, not just the winter fuel allowance, but disability cuts are difficult in that the numbers involved are way higher. You can't just move a few other things around in the budget. It's also not as simple as the simplistic answers on taxes either. Some of the tax rises being called for may have some scope, but for the numbers we're looking at, we actually need to reduce, we would reduce investment if you just whacked up taxes that much. There is already evidence that the employer's national insurance hike has cost investment, right? Now, that doesn't mean it was the wrong policy, because alternative options were just not available. But it did hit investment. My preferred option of land tax would take years to plan. I would like to think Labour are looking at it. I bet they're not, but that I do recognise you can't announce that this October. What's going to be needed, realistically, is to look at those self-imposed fiscal rules. Remember, when we talk about Rachel Reeves needing to plug a hole in the budget with the disability cuts earlier this year, we don't mean there was a literal hole in the budget. This isn't like when the Tories hid a load of expenditure from the OBR last year. That's an actual hole in the budget. The figures didn't add up, right? In this case, there's just a gap between what Reeves wants to spend over 5 years and what the OBR calculates she can afford to spend over 5 years within her fiscal rules. But there are two problems with this. First, it is impossible for even the finest Nobel Prize winning economists to calculate the growth of an economy over 5 years. Look at how many changes we've needed to the model just since last October, caused by various factors, most of them Trump. Doing it to any degree of accuracy over 5 years, absolutely impossible. Second, the OBR are basing their already shaky model on parameters set by the Chancellor. It's Labour's policy to make sure debt is falling as a share of GDP over 5 years. That is not a law of economics. In fact, economists don't even think it's a good rule to have. It's purely political. And this is the key point. That particular fiscal rule, I'm not saying you shouldn't have any fiscal rules, but that particular fiscal rule is political in nature. It's not economic. It's designed to appeal to voters. But right now, voters care more about economic growth than this fiscal rule, and the two are in direct conflict with one another. The cuts to the winter fuel allowance were potentially bad for the economy because it was money withdrawn which might have been spent. But the cuts to disability payments are definitely bad for the economy because that is money that definitely gets spent, and lots of it. And where you have a lot of claimants in one particular area, like, for example, Labour areas that are under pressure from Reform UK, that has a noticeable impact on the local economy. And the reason the cuts even exist is because of a political fiscal rule, which the public don't seem to be prioritising right now. The way to tackle the cuts is not to replace one bad economic policy with another, as some Labour MPs are calling for. Get rid of a political policy which voters are not prioritising over economic benefits. That's the way to approach this. But there is a political cost to doing it. The fiscal rule has been a very firm line associated with Rachel Reeves. Getting rid of it looks like undermining Rachel Reeves. This would look like Downing Street saying to Rachel Reeves, you've now got to abandon your line in the sand. It would weaken her position. Some are suggesting that she may have to fall on her sword in order for Labour to move on from this. I say that would be another mistake. Rachel Reeves is the most qualified Chancellor we've had for a long time. She's not been incompetent. She's made decisions that have proved politically unpopular and need reversing. But the fact that those policies ever saw the light of day was not because of the woman running the Treasury, but the men in Downing Street. 10 Downing Street specifically. It is 10 Downing Street's job to act as a filter against politically stupid policies being announced. They are the ones who have messed up. There isn't anyone who would do a better job at the Treasury. Ousting Reeves would just be her taking one for the team. But this would be a team that retains the services, the dubious services of the people who messed up in the first place. Also, Reeves has attracted a lot of misogynistic attacks, which I do not want to see rewarded. I do think Labour need to revisit their fiscal rules. They need to communicate with the public that those fiscal rules, whilst ordinarily sensible, are now conflict with economic growth. Talk to them about Keynesian economics. Keynesian economics. A fiscal rule like that makes sense as the economy is recovering. But when it's under pressure from a global downturn, Keynesian economics says that is the time when you need to loosen those fiscal rules. It's an established economic principle going back decades. And Reeves should take the lead on that. The public are likely to support it. The Tory press will presumably flip its lid. But if it results in unpopular cuts being reversed, I do not think the public will care. Reducing national debt is just not something which makes economic sense during a global downturn. Like I said, this is when Keynes says you need to borrow. Labour must stop hitting the voters that they not only rely upon themselves, but which Reform UK are successfully appealing to. They need to start thinking politically. They need to start doing it very quickly and then move on. They can easily move on from this. The public will not care about these missteps in 3 or 4 years' time if they're dealt with quickly and decisively. And if they can do that before summer, they should do that before summer, then maybe we can have a little word about their also misfiring social policies. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.